I knew they had better access, and so I wanted the same access.
Right.
And so I knew how to conform to get same access. I don't know. It's sort of like being taught to play the game to
Yes.
get what you need.
want, yes.
And so subconsciously, I don't know if in some way that may have that could have been, but always at the top of my mind, it was that, oh, I need to do this to get this.
Yes.
So I don't know. For me, I don't think I felt like that, and I think maybe it's because racism was really very open, and you knew that was just wrong, and you knew you were doing. Yeah, I guess the other thing is we did so much for white people. It's like you didn't really want to do that stuff, and so you knew you had to do it. And so I don't know. It wasn't that they were better; it was that they had folks working for them to make it better.
Right.
And so I don't know.
I kind of agree with part of what you're saying as far as conforming. My parents, we were the first African Americans in the suburb in where we lived at, and I was the first black student at the Catholic Christian school. I was the problem child in the school system. My mom had never had a problem with being in the preschool, kindergarten stages or anything like that. And it was the first time, my first year there, they told my mom that I needed to be tested for behavioral disorder and learning disability. And my mom said, no, that's not going to happen. And so I don't necessarily know that I thought white people were better, but I knew I had to conform and be smart. I had to play the game. And part of that was learning that being who I knew I wasn't always okay
Right.
in every situation.
Yeah, and that's
And I understood that very early. My first experience, I think I wrote this on my paper. My first experience in the school system, the Catholic school system where I was going to school, was first day of school. I didn't know anything about the school or anything, so I'm kind of just looking in the hallways and things of that nature. And a nun came up to me and she said, I don't think we've ever seen a darkie here at our school. Ha ha ha. So I said, oh, something about that wasn't right, And so I learned very early, because first of all, I was raised Baptist. We were the only black family in our suburb, and the first. I remember kids, I remember waking up one night and my dad was on the phone with the police yelling with them. And I was a little girl, and there were some white teenage boys throwing bricks. My mom and dad had just purchased this house, our house, and they threw bricks with the word nigger. And I knew they were really ignorant because they didn't spell it right. That was mighty ignorant. When you're going to insult, insult us and then not even spell the word right, come on, So I don't necessarily, I'm like you, I don't necessarily, well, yeah, that was a whole nother issue. But I don't know that I ever thought white people were better or supreme over me. I just knew I had to play the game. In education, I know, even as a graduate student, I know my GPA speaks for me.
yeah.
So I know if I'm not doing well in the class, I'm going to talk to I'm talking to a professor. I'm going to talk to the chair. I know what it takes, because my experiences have shown me that I have to be the best at what I'm doing if I'm going to play this game we call life. You know what I'm saying? If I'm going to play the game, I need to be on it.
It's like, one of those things where I remember being younger and learning that, and it's not even like necessarily it was said, but you have to work twice as hard.
Yes,
than most white people do. And most people that I know that were black, they were taught the same thing. Now, whether some of them did, I can't say, but I know growing up, that was something my mother really instilled in me, was education as being the way out. Even though a lot of them in my family didn't have it, my mother was the first person in my family that I can think of to graduate from college. and to own property. And so in my family, they saw it as a way of getting out. And my mother is a part of the family that moved out. So it's like our family grew from that. So in my family, like education, definitely.
Yes.
They're very serious about your education.
Yes.
They want you to stay in school.
Yes.
School comes first. And you need to academically excel.
Yes, that's right.
And you have to be the best.
Yes.
You have to be the best
That's
because that's all. That's what it's going to take to move ahead.
Exactly.
And that's something that my mother has always stressed
Yes.
to me. So it wasn't even necessarily me being like they were saying. It wasn't that they were better per se, and even in every area. But I know that I had to be where they were. I had to work a little harder.
Yes.
I kind of recognize that.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
for me, I was the flip
Definitely.
side of that. I ain't know nothing about the game and stuff like that. I guess I was just, that's what guy with the women, y'all gotta get y'all on it, you know what I'm saying? Y'all, that's why they say y'all mature more than quicker than me. Because I wasn't, there wasn't no game. When I was, look, I grew up in the inner city. You know, my parents were all about education. My dad, you know, got his PhD. My mother, she got her license as a nurse. My grandmother went to school and graduated, put that in paper. She graduated at a later age from college. My aunts got their teachers. And so I had to, you know, the instilling education with it in me was a given. I knew that from as a young boy. But I was a child that always thought white people were better. Did. I mean, look, I grew up in neighborhoods that you couldn't sit on your porch because you might get shot. You know, I grew up in neighborhoods that don't walk around the corner. I would have to walk through the alley to the bus stop because walking to the corner is where all the activity took place. I just lived in one of those rougher areas in the city. One of those areas they say, hey, if you're driving in, make sure you know where you're going. That was the area I grew up in. So when I would see people on TV or I would drive up north with my mother to different areas of the middle class, upper middle class neighborhoods, and I would say, man, oh, they got grass. Oh my gosh, they got block clubs. Oh snap, yeah. People they barbecue in front of their house. Oh snap, you know what I'm saying? Just weird little stuff that people take for granted. You know, and I would look in my neighborhood and where we lived in a particular block for 16, 17 years, and they broke in our house 3 times. You know, and they would scratch up our cars if we parked in front of our home, and then get mad if they parked in front of my house. People parked in front of my house and then get mad when I pull up.
Yeah, in front of your house.
And get an attitude and stuff, you know. And, you know, just little stuff like that. But I grew up in a really, really rough neighborhood, so I was always growing up. I was real resentful to my own people. I mean, I love my friends. I love, you know what I'm saying, my family. But I was resentful for my community because our community looked bad, we act bad, and then I'm looking at the white people that I did meet. Their neighborhoods was fabulous. Now I didn't go to the poor neighborhoods.
Right.
I'm just saying I went to the neighborhoods that had the businesses, and neighborhoods my mother and my father had to go to work that worked in or something like this. I'm like, man, this is nice. You know, and I would always say, man, they got it so much better. You know, and it wasn't that people had it so much better as much as that they just lived differently and they had their own type of struggles and their own types of challenges. And it wasn't really until I began to get a little more older, I began to work. I started working like at 14. I became a little more social. At that time in my life, when I used to think that white people were better, my mama really didn't let me go out anyway. You know what I'm saying? My only exposure was television. My only exposure was television at that time that I felt like that. So as I began to get out of the house and work and meet different people and go into different neighborhoods and go to a multicultural school is when I began to go, okay, I see, you know. But like I said, it took me a long time to get to that place of play the game. You know, I was for the most part I was just in the game. And
I experienced that too, though. I experienced yours, and I experienced your wives. I lived in the inner city. I lived in the gang, drug-infested neighborhood. But my mom was so on education. She had me bused to the north side, and I'm to this day, when I be seeing the little buses, I'm like, you know, I used to be on a little bus, so I used to think like, you know, I'm going to school, but I was taken from the neighborhood. My mom didn't want me going into school where the neighborhood kids went. I had to be bused to a school. So when I go to school, I'm around Asian, Latinos, Caucasians. I'm just around a multicultural school. And so I was playing the game because I know it's not too many of us that's being bused here. So I'm learning how to play the game. And I started conforming to them. I started kind of like dressing like them. But then I go back to the inner city and then, you know, go back home and they like, I hang out with them too. But I'm getting bused back to my school. Yeah, I had difficulty though, because I went from 8th to 9th grade in a Caucasian school. When it was 10th grade, I actually got kicked out of a Caucasian school my 9th grade. And that's a whole nother, you know, issue of racism. But in 10th grade, I went to all black high school. So from white to all black, you know, I'm talking and they like, man, you sound white, you know. And I'm like, I don't sound white. And they're like, yes, you do. And I'm like having difficulty because I'm like, these the same people that I hang around, you know, in the neighborhood. And now they're talking about I dress white and I sound white. So I had the most difficult 10th grade year to try to prove that I'm black. You know what I'm saying? I'm black, you know? So honestly, I started joining social clubs. I mean, I really was doing like stupid stuff. I was like, yeah, I started doing like social clubs with all the black kids. Now, mind you, I know all the gangbangers in the school and they know me, but they just like, you're different, you know, you act white, you know, and I'm like, I don't act white. So I took it as like, when I took that experience, like, okay, maybe I do need to learn a little bit more about being black, you know. So the social clubs helped me. I started like, you know, I just started doing a lot of like homework and stuff. I was just in a whole lot of clubs, you know. Every club it was student council, all this, you know. And so to this day, I look at myself and I was like, man, I done a big difference. But that's how I'm able to adapt now. I'm able to adapt with the white people and I'm able to adapt with the black people. I'm able to play the game. I'm able to chill. You know,
And
so I'm able
to just
to
learn to do it. You just code switch. You just go from one life to the next. I go home and it's like it's just you forget all about standard American English. It doesn't exist. You know, like what is that?
I say it all the time. I say I don't speak English on the weekends and in the summer. I ain't in class, don't expect my words to sound nothing like you heard.
We all kind of run-on sentences,
Fragments. That's what my papers look the way
Made
they
up
do
words.
sometimes. I have to adjust, you know, long run fragment sentences and stuff. But it's a survival mode though.
Yeah, it is true.
It's a survival mode.
That's all it is.
And it's a survival mode that we have to adapt to.
Yes.
And I think once
And our parents really tried to instill that, but until you have that first experience where you say, "Ooh, this is what Mama was talking about. Let me switch."
Yeah.
It's like at that moment you understand. Okay, this is a game. This is how we gotta play the game, and you may get caught up every once in a while and forget. Ooh, where I was at, who I was alone. You know, but then you quickly get back together. You know what I'm saying? You quickly, realize.
And you all know what the word for that is in China. I think you just said.
Bicultural
Yeah,
living.
bicultural living.
Right.
Because our parents too, I mean, my parents were like, my mom, I want all you guys to get an education.
That's right.
I don't want you to live like we're living in these small row houses, 15 children in a cramped up shack, water, you got, this idea of running water, let me tell you, that was a culture shock to me. It's just this crazy kind of stuff. So my parents really, they would really get on us if we didn't use good grammar. They would say, look, you can't talk like that right now. You're gonna speak like that and write like that if you do that. And I tell my children that. And so there are times we just have to relax at home and just be who we are. But I tell them, you talk like that, you're gonna write like that, and then that's gonna hurt your education. It's crazy. And so my kids are even.
That's so much to worry
my son
about.
is in a all he's the only black kid in his classroom. He code switches. Today he's with the soccer team and at Judah he's speaking with the white kids. Now he's at home, he's chilling with the black neighbors. I mean, he just and I watch him do the same exact thing that we do, and that is tiresome.
It
it make you grow up quick.
It really does. It really does.
Because it's sad that it has to be that way. It's almost surreal to have to live like that because I don't think I don't know if Caucasians have to live like that and to change, but it is tiresome growing up. It was very tiresome to have to, and it's not even like it was two separate people, but just like Kamenette was saying, being aware of where you are.